Good morning, school. Good morning, everyone. Everyone at home as well. This morning's assembly comes from my daily exercise out and about, and I've come down to the cenotaph in the centre of town today. If you look closely, you can see all the bright red from the poppies and the wreaths that were laid here back in November on Remembrance Day. But I've come here because this Friday will mark VE Day, which will mark 75 years since fighting in World War II in Europe ended. VE Day stands for Victory in Europe Day. It's a memorial. Memorial comes from the word memory. It's here to help us remember the people who gave their lives in war, fighting for the values that we hold so dear in our country. Things like democracy, and the rule of law, and freedom. And you can see, when you look carefully, the names of people who've sadly given their lives for those things. I've come a bit further along the estuary now. You can see here an old gun turret. This was built for 2 men to be inside and to fire the gun. The turret was stationed near the docks during World War II. It was used in the event of an invasion. Invasion is when an army or group of people try to take over someone else's land. And in Britain and Exmouth, only 75 years ago, there was a genuine fear that that might happen. Britain didn't want Germany to invade because the leaders of Germany at the time had very different beliefs to us, beliefs that were dangerous and frightening. VE Day marks a day in 1945 when Germany surrendered and peace in Europe was declared. It meant that there was no longer any threat of invasion or bombs being dropped in Britain, or soldiers having to go and fight in other European countries. There was huge rejoicing and parties and celebrations when the public found out that after more than 5 years of losing their loved ones in other countries, fighting in the war, it was drawing to a close. Prime Minister Winston Churchill and the royal family, they addressed thousands of people from the balcony at Buckingham Palace. And that night, even the young princesses, one of whom is now our Queen, they snuck into town to party themselves. And although we celebrate VE Day, it wasn't actually the end of World War II. There were still lots of troops in Europe, and they needed to be brought home. There are many injured people and prisoners of war to be organised and brought back safely. And crucially, there was still fighting happening in Asia. It wasn't until VJ Day in August, to mark the victory over Japan, that World War II was actually brought to a complete close.
So on Friday, we're all going to be celebrating VE Day, Victory in Europe Day. Well, I do have a bit of a problem with the word victory in this scenario. Victory makes me think of winning, makes me think of the 1976 Cup final and the Brixton netball team. And actually, when it comes to war, there really aren't any winners. And I find it easier to think of, rather than the word victory, think of it as a group of friends all coming together to defeat something that was threatening their way of life. I think that's something we can all understand at the moment. And on Friday, we'll all be dressing up in red, white and blue to celebrate that. If you're at school, please make sure you're wearing red, white and blue that day. We'll be having a picnic on the field. If you're at home, as most of you will be, wear your red, white and blue. Send us in your photos, please. We'll make sure that we share them over social media. Have a really good week.